Hi, I'm Danielle Williams, AK. I'm a designer, stylist, consultant, and advocate for size inclusivity and diversity within the fashion industry. Welcome to the Xtnded Convos podcast. This podcast is a space to host conversations with industry insiders to learn about their journey through the industry. From designers to content creators, creative directors to community builders, we will get the inside scoop on the people taking the plus and inclusive size space to the next level. Follow us on Instagram at xtend.co and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episodes. This is the Xtnded Convos podcast presented by Xtend Consulting Co. I am so excited to introduce my first guest for the Xtnded Convos podcast, the Kristine Thompson. Kristine is a blogger, influencer, content creator, and designer who has made her mark on the plus and inclusive fashion space. She has worked with brands like JCPenney's, David Bridal, Disney, and Netflix, and has been featured in publications including People Style Watch, Glamour Magazine, and Essence. She has a large following on both Instagram and TikTok, where she is known for sharing styling tips and tricks for the curvy girl. In 2019, Kristine launched her own brand, Kim by Kristine, with the mission of sharing unapologetic confidence with women through clothes. And with all of those accolades, what I love most about Kristine is that she is just an all-around amazing woman that I am lucky enough to call friend. And so with that, let's welcome Kristine.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining me today.
Of course.
Excited to talk
Thank
to
you for having me.
And so the Xtnded Convos podcast, which is in partnership with my consulting company, Xtend Consulting Co., is really a space for the people that I've met through my journey to share their stories. I really feel like I've worked with and met and have come into contact with so many amazing women, men within this plus and inclusive space that I feel like I want their stories to be told and for people to understand all that goes into and what has gone into their journey. And so that's what this podcast is. It's a platform and an opportunity to do that. And so I like to start these off with really telling people how I met my guest, again, because this is about a little bit about my journey through the industry. And so I'll share a little bit about how we met. Feel free to jump in with your perspective on that, on our little meet cute. We can go from there. But I was working as a designer at Torrid at the time, and we had our annual pool party. And typically we would invite influencers, content creators, special guests, so on and so forth. I was asked to attend with the Torrid team, and Kristine was one of the content creators that were there. And, you know, everybody kind of goes off into their little corners, but Kristine was so friendly, so nice. We struck up a conversation. We were also talking to Gavin. And it was just felt so natural, so real. And in those spaces, it can sometimes feel like you're by yourself and it's hard to kind of connect to people. And that connection just felt really natural and really easy. And we were able to kind of build a relationship from there. And I feel like fast forward 2017, we were in New York during Fashion Week. I was like, I got an extra ticket to the Christian Siriano show.
Came in clutch.
You want to come? And she was down. She made it happen. I was like, okay, she's a real one, because she's like, all right, let's do it.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Right.
It's an amazing show, but yes. Yes. So to echo off of what you were saying, so we met at the Torrid pool party, which I missed, by the way. I don't know why they don't do
I know, right?
But I have gone to a lot of events where I felt isolated. I didn't feel like anybody was trying to talk to me or anything. So I make it a point, especially when I see another Black woman in the space, to go up to them and say something. So it was one of those spaces where I felt like everybody was going to their individual silos. And that's not necessarily because I think people are being antisocial. I think it's just more comfortable than trying to approach somebody and not feeling like you're getting positive feedback. So yeah, I saw you, and I then came to know that you work for Torrid, and so we struck up a conversation. And yeah, it's just, when you meet somebody and the vibes are there, I was like, oh, she's cool peoples, like I didn't know that we would develop a friendship beyond that, but I was just like, okay, she has a great vibe about herself, a great aura. So we kept in contact. And of course, New York happened. And then since then,
I mean, it's like dinner and trips and everything.
I know it now. Wedding is just
right.
Now it's a full-blown friendship. It
I
cannot
know.
be stopped, but
love it. I love it.
yeah.
And what's interesting is that I think I met somebody else at your wedding who you kind of also met. I forget her name. You met kind of through a brand.
Oh, it was probably Melissa.
Yes. So I think there is just something to building community and connection that can go beyond just like work or like the transactional, things that we do for so I think those little moments are really important to build connection, regardless of how long and how far they go. It is, you can tell when it's authentic and genuine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, I kind of want to start at the beginning of your story. So around 2015, you started blogging, which was, I believe, kind of your introduction into this space. Do you remember kind of the state of fashion during that time, and kind of based on that, why you decided that you wanted to start blogging?
Yeah, so it was horrible. There were not a lot of options. Actually, I mean, it wasn't as bad as when I was growing up as a teenager. That was horrible. But we started to have some more plus size fashion stores, but definitely not trendy things. And so I feel like in that time period, you had to be creative. You had to be very resourceful, like trying to find trendy plus size clothing was a second part-time job.
Scavenger hunt. Like,
it was a
scavenger hunt,
right? So I got introduced to the body positive movement on Instagram and immediately was enamored by what we now know is kind of the OG bloggers who were just unapologetically plus size and showing their style and just so fierce, so trendy. And that was something that I had really never seen in my day-to-day life. So I immediately gravitated to it, wanted to be a part of it, didn't exactly know where I would fit, but felt this calling to do it. So I started with a Tumblr because I didn't know how to create a website or a blog or anything. So Tumblr was the next best option, and started posting on Instagram regularly, talking about where I was getting my outfits from, how they fit. I was online shopping even then, probably almost exclusively because I could never find anything in store.
Right.
So I was scouring the internet for anything. I was ordering from overseas companies. I was ordering from eBay. Like, it didn't really matter. I was on a mission to find cute clothes. And so I think people just kind of related to my story and, what I was saying and how I was dressing. And over time, it just kind of built and turned into this full-fledged career that I'm now in. So it's been an interesting but so fulfilling journey.
That's awesome. And the fact, I feel like the first step is always like the hardest one, to say, okay, I'm gonna really do this and really
absolutely, because I was like, I'm not a fashionista. I would always look at the high fashion girls and think, I'm not that person. I don't really know where I fit. I'm just a girl who's trying to look cute every day.
Right,
So it was definitely a hurdle to then say I am now coming out as a fashion blogger. What are people around me gonna think? Just how am I going to be perceived? But thanks to persistent family and an even more persistent now husband, pushed me into doing it and really helped facilitate the whole process along the way, taking my pictures, everything. So yeah, it came to be, but it wasn't It wasn't something I willingly went into. I knew I wanted to do it, but I was very scared to do
Right.
it.
And like,
Yeah.
if you knew then what you know now, I'm sure it like,
I would have started well before.
okay, got you.
Yeah.
And so I feel like with content creators, influencers, creatives, there comes a point where, you know, you are working your full-time job, which is like paying the bills, and you're kind of doing this on the side. What was the moment that you decided to leave your full-time job, which you can share what that was, to
Yeah.
go do this full-time?
Yeah. So I was working in marketing, which I guess is somewhat similar to influencing, but I was working for a business to business company. So it was not at all fun marketing in the least bit. It was trade shows, brochures, all that type of stuff, very technical products. And so I had gotten to a point where, number one, I was surprised I wasn't fired because I was taking off all the time. I was taking off to go to photo shoots. I was taking off for events. Every time I would accrue vacation time, I would go right back down to zero. So it was just my influencer career was building so quickly. I feel like I took a turn and it was just a straight shot up, that I was being invited to a lot of things and had a lot more responsibility. So that was conflicting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my income was rising.
Mm-hmm.
So the income that I was making through influencing started to match what I was making at my 9 to 5. So it was kind of becoming more clear to me that this was something that I should do. However, it still wasn't seen as a safe move, in my opinion, because
Right.
I've always been taught, you keep your job, you have your 401k, you have a steady income.
Mm-hmm.
Influencing was still so new at the time that I didn't know if it was going to be sustainable. But I also knew that I didn't really love what I was doing at my regular job. So again, a situation where I had to be forced into it because God really was orchestrating that whole situation. So I had gotten to the point where my income was very much on par with what my 9 to 5 was. And but I was still hesitant, and I was, talking to everyone around me, and what should I do? What should I do? And at that time, my job was very comfortable. It was 5 minutes from my house, which in LA is unheard of. I had to go on no freeway. I had to go like past one street light to
Nice.
get to my house. So it would get to my job. So it was very comfortable. It was an easy job. Everybody knew me. It wasn't really much hard work. I kind of was on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
Then everything started to shift. It was like a new year. We got acquired by a new company that I now had new management. They now were in talks of moving the office to a completely different location, to where my commute would have probably been upwards of 45 minutes to an
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
So all of these changes started to be made, and I was just like, I feel like this is God saying, this is not the place for you anymore. Like,
Right.
you're comfortable, but we need you to move. I'm gonna force you to move,
Right.
even if you're not gonna move yet. And so the final spot was when our company was going through a series of layoffs. And I feel like a lot of people know how that goes. You never know who's going to go next. So my boss at the time came into my office, and he said that we had to lay somebody off from my team. And he said, I don't know what's pulling me, but I feel like you no longer want to be here. And I would never put your name up, but I wanted to check with you to see if that feeling was correct.
Yeah.
And so I told him at that moment, like literally, it just became clear as day. I was like, yes, like please put me forward to be laid off.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to a conference room. I called my mom. I was crying because I was like, I feel like that was one of the first moments in my life where God made it so plain for me. Like, I'm moving you out of here. So,
and a testament, also to like, even when we feel God moving, it doesn't always feel good. It's not like, okay, I'm leaving, peace out. Like, there's still that fear of like, is this God or is this me? Or is this God or is this me? Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like everything kind of came flooding in at the same time. And I was like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. Now he's asking me, do I want to be laid off? And then being laid off versus fired is a way better situation because you get, unemployment, severance pay, all that stuff. So it just put me in a comfortable position to where I was like, okay, even if this influencing doesn't work out, I know that this was not the place for me, and there's something else that I need to move on to. So yeah, that was kind of the story of how I left.
Okay. That's good. Like you said, these things, God, I feel like sometimes does have to force us out of situations because it is, like you said, there's comfort in, people know me, the job I know how to do really easily. Like I can get through, but that time where it's like time to level up, sometimes he does have to force us to level up. And I mean, look at you now, girl.
I know. Now it's like, why did you ever question it? But at the time, it was very scary.
So when you think back to that time, you are leaving your job, going into blogging, influencing full time. Can you give me 3 adjectives that would describe who Kristine was then?
Ooh, I was anxious, but very excited and just motivated. I was, it was a very, very interesting time because I was very scared of the future, but also very excited for this new venture. I never envisioned my life without a 9-to-5. I didn't even know what that looked like. Now influencing has become so much more common that it's kind of hard for people to think back then when that wasn't the norm. Everybody had a 9-to-5. There was only a select few influencers that had, millions of followers that could do this full time. So it was not at all the landscape that we're looking at now. So it was just like, I have no idea what the future holds, but I'm excited to see what happens because I've clearly gotten here for a reason. I don't think I would have come this far if there wasn't something greater on the other side. So it was a very interesting.
It was an interesting time because even as I was in high school when I decided I was going to go to school for fashion, which at the time my parents were like, I don't know about this because creative was not what it is now. Going into creative industries and this almost self-employed lifestyle, like that was our parents, like you said, raised us, get your 9-to-5, get your 401k, get your PTO. But I think what I love and what I love seeing now is the way the world and industry has shifted for this next generation, where it's like, there is no limit. Like, you don't have to do what your parents did and what your grandparents did. Like, there are so many more opportunities to really have a passion and live in that passion and make your passion your 9-to-5, like what you do, how you make your money.
Absolutely. And now seems like the job market is just as volatile as the entrepreneurial market.
Listen, everybody can have it at this point.
So do what you feel best.
Absolutely. So fast forward a little bit, you've been doing your content creation, you're blogging, you've gotten followers, you're getting more notoriety. Then you decide that you want to start your own brand. What inspired you to start Kim by Kristine? And how did you know you wanted to evolve into a founder designer versus really just mostly representing other brands?
Yeah. So it was birthed out of frustration, I think, first and foremost, because I just wasn't seeing what I wanted to see in plus size fashion, and still don't,
Mhm.
for that matter. But I got to the point where I just said, you know what? I'm just gonna do it on my own. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I feel like at least I felt like I cared more than these brands. So
Yeah.
at the very least, in the core of it may not be perfect, but it's going to be a line that is stemmed from someone who truly cares about how women feel in their clothing and is really just not trying to make a buck and not trying
Right.
to appease some status quo. So
Right.
that was the fuel for starting Kim by Kristine. And I went into it with really no knowledge of the industry. I had to learn a lot along the way, some of which I learned beforehand.
Mhm.
But I knew I was going to have growing pains because it was a completely new territory to me.
Mhm.
So I was making money from influencing, was able to fund some of that excess funds into creating the line. And I just went for it.
Mhm.
And I just said, what's the worst that can happen? I fail. So
Right.
um, you know, so I started it and in 2019, and was just I just wanted to do what I thought needed to happen within the plus size community, and that is someone who truly cared about the end customer and the quality of the clothing and the sizing and X, Y, and Z. So that is what birthed Kim by Kristine. It took years to create.
Mhm.
I had to learn a lot. It wasn't an easy launch whatsoever. It was literally the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. But luckily, I met people like you who
Yeah, I
helped
was
me.
gonna say, I think back to that time, and what impressed me most was that you were like, okay, I tried making samples on my own. You like
Yeah,
got out your sewing machine
yeah,
really so that you could understand, like, no, this is not like your final sample, but it's like, let me
yeah,
understand how the thing is made. Let me understand
yeah.
why this affects this. And I think that's the step that a lot of new designers don't take, of like
Mhm.
understanding what really goes in, just so you can have a grasp, so that when you go to a factory, when you go to a manufacturer, you have some sort of idea of like what goes
Yeah,
into making this happen.
yeah. It was the hardest thing that I've done because I feel like every space I was walking into, I was just dumb, like I just didn't know anything. So, and that's kind of hard when you're
Mhm.
trying to get people to work with you and you
Yeah.
feel like you just can't even talk to them. So I said, at the very least, my mom had taught me how to sew years back. I didn't really keep up with it, but I said, I'm going to pick it back up and
Mhm.
learn how to at least create base garments so
Right.
that I can go into these places and not say like, oh, I want to make a skirt. And then they say, okay, what kind of skirt you want to make?
What are we doing here?
So I can at least show them something physical. And I felt like
Right.
the number one, they would take me a little bit more seriously.
Mhm.
And number two, that I can execute some and play with some ideas that I have to be able to create the final product. So I knew it wasn't going to be like the production sample, but it was at least a start to show them this is what I'm trying to create.
Mhm.
And this is the type of fabric that I want to learn or want to use. And so I learned so much during that process. It was definitely not the easiest route to take.
Right.
But I learned so much about clothing construction that I would have never known
Mhm.
not taking that step. And especially working with manufacturers, I do feel like they respected that a lot more.
Yeah.
So it was it made it a little bit easier to navigate, even though it was not easy. It was a lot of trial and error. I was like, sewing is the most frustrating
Oh, yeah.
thing on the planet. I don't know how people do it on a daily
Listen,
basis.
I've
The
been
garment's
to
correct.
many schools. I have many degrees in it, and it's the thing
Yeah.
I hate the most. It's like
Yeah.
I could design it, but please don't ask me to make it because I just don't have the patience. There is just a lot of like intricacies and like you make an error, you kind of gotta go back and like it becomes a lot. So yeah, it's not an easy thing.
No, not at all.
So you started Ken, and I know you have kind of taken a little bit of a break, trying to regroup and kind of which I think is a great thing. Sometimes I think you have to step back and figure out what's our path forward. So where are you with that now?
Okay, so Ken has had like an amazing trajectory. It's had like the highest highs and some of the lowest lows. And I in talking with more business owners, I realized that that's very normal because I was getting very down on myself that I was like failing the business. But so we got to the point where we got the attention of Nordstrom, was able to sell through Nordstrom, which is like
big,
unbelievable.
Yes,
so unbelievable. Things were doing really well. Then we hit a roadblock, especially with COVID. COVID hit the fashion industry hard.
Yes.
Our manufacturers went bankrupt. They moved out of state. A lot of our fabric vendors went out of business. And so it was just very difficult to keep up with manufacturing, especially when you're small. Although our business was growing tremendously, and with the help of Nordstrom, we were able to increase our quantity substantially. In the grand scheme of fashion, I was still very small.
Right.
So it's very hard for companies to see the benefit of taking on smaller manufacturers, especially when their bottom line is being hit as well.
Right.
So they only want the big accounts. So it was very difficult to navigate. And so I just didn't feel like I was giving the level of customer service, the level of the product, the inventory that we should have been giving. And so I could have kept pushing through and really just on a very mediocre level.
Right, exactly.
To get by. But I made the decision, like, let's just halt manufacturing, let's halt production, and let's regroup and figure this out. So that's kind of where we are now. Plus, a lot of things have happened personally that have taken a lot more attention away from business things. So we will come back. I'm saying that on record. We will come back, but we needed this time, and I don't feel anymore that I am a failure for doing that, because I did feel like that for a long time. I feel like it was necessary for our business, because I don't think that if we continued to push through, I don't know that we would have we wouldn't have been able to sustain. So we were able to kind of like stop where we were, which was a good point in our business. And we're going to pick up the pieces, and we're going to come back even better. So
I know it. I
stay tuned.
Wait. Yes. Stay tuned, everyone.
All good things.
Yeah.
You have to wait for it.
Yeah. And like you said, I've talked to a couple of small business owners, specifically in this inclusive plus size space. And you're right. It's not easy, especially when you are self-funded, especially when you're kind of hitting the ground running, figuring things out for yourself. But I think what I love now about the industry is that things can kind of evolve organically. It's like you don't have to put out a collection every spring, summer. You don't have to drop 20 pieces. Like it can be whatever you really want it to be, because at the end of the day, it's a representation of you and what you feel like you want to put out into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that it necessarily has to take a traditional flow anymore.
Exactly.
So to your point, we're trying to take a step back so we can look at it with fresh eyes. Like, what do we really want to do? What makes us happy? Because to be quite honest and candid, going the traditional route was causing us to make a lot of compromises for our bottom line, because at the end of the day, we are a business and we need to make money.
Right.
So I felt myself always competing with I want to create the best product with, I have to sustain this business because now I have a third party relying
Right.
on me.
Right.
So it was causing me to be at a very unhappy place. And that's not the reason that I made this business to
Right.
begin with, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I think us taking a step back, figuring out what is the best way to move forward for us that works for us and that makes us money as well, was the best choice.
Right. Well, I can't wait to see what is to come for Ken. And obviously, as you know, I am always here as a resource for you when you are
Yes.
ready. Um, so I want to pivot a little bit. We talked about your brand, but over the years, you have partnered with a range of brands from the fashion space, but also a lot of brands outside of the fashion space. How do you determine the best brands to partner with? And is there a goal aside from like the monetary goal that you're hoping to accomplish by partnering with brands?
Yeah. So, luckily I'm in a position now in influencing where, I have a lot more power than I thought I did originally. Before it was like, I'm just happy to be in the room. Um, I'm going to try to insert my opinion, but I think my presence is really what's most important. Now I feel like because I've accumulated such a following that I have an even greater responsibility for what I post and for what I promote more specifically, that I need to make sure that their brand aligns with what I have spoken about and what I preach about and, you
Right.
know, kind of my brand ethos.
Right.
So that has caused me to turn down deals and
Mm-hmm.
money. Um because I just don't feel like the brand aligns with my values as a Black woman, my values as a plus size woman, and just inclusivity in general. And so I think that's first and foremost, just making sure that the brand looks like what they say they
Right.
portray.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just on their social medias anymore, because now we have much more insight into who's working for these brands.
Absolutely. What's their
So
C-suite look
yeah,
like? Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
Especially now that brand trips are more and more prevalent, we can actually meet the team.
Mm-hmm.
Do they look like a reflection of what they're trying to portray
Right.
that they are, or is it not gelling? So
Mm-hmm.
that's first and foremost. Secondly, I always want to make sure that it's a good product, something that I actually do like and use. Um, we as influencers, we do get a lot of campaigns, so it's not necessarily everything that you use on a daily basis. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm introduced to new things that I like and, you know, can tell my audience about, but I think those are the main pillars. Do they align with my values? And is it a product that I would actually use in my day-to-day life that I can
Right.
speak to from a genuine place?
Right. And I think what's so interesting, like I said, you have worked with a lot of fashion brands because you kind of started in the fashion space,
Yeah.
but seeing you partner with like a Netflix or I think you've done some automotive campaigns, home goods,
Mhm.
like I think there's something to be said about representation even in those spaces. Like yes,
Yeah.
you are traditionally a fashion influencer, but I also need to be this presence, what I represent needs to be shown in these different industries and these different spaces.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that brands are starting to realize that and catch on to that too. My campaigns used to be exclusively fashion,
Mhm.
exclusively plus. Now they're much more diversified. It's much more lifestyle. It's kind of like a mixture of everything. But that does come with its challenges
Mhm.
because, you know, I'll create content for the brand, they'll use it as an ad. And I did a campaign with I won't name the brand because it's really not on them at all, but it was a toothpaste company. So I did a campaign with them and they used my content as an ad. And so when they use it as they open you up to a way greater audience
Right.
and a lot of people who don't like you, don't
Mhm.
like seeing you. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, it just kind of reinforces that there needs to be more representation in those places
Right.
because there was a lot of hate on me being plus size. And I'm like, I'm brushing my teeth. Like,
Well,
I
you think we
don't
don't brush our teeth?
I don't understand. Am I not supposed to brush my teeth because I'm fat?
Right.
Like,
Like,
I
it's
don't
crazy.
get it. Yeah. So it's like, but it's like they're so unaccustomed. Is that a word? Yeah,
Yeah,
unaccustomed.
they're
Not
used
accustomed.
to seeing
Yeah.
this one thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is the
They just
standard.
can't get their minds out of seeing this type of person in such an everyday
Right.
products ad, because it's been so regimented thus far.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm excited to be here, but it also does is I do feel like I'm the front line of this, so I'm
Yeah.
getting a lot of that blowback, but
Right.
I'll take it. I got
Right.
it, so it's fine.
Yes. We thank you. Because a couple years from now, it won't seem so like, wait, what's going on now?
Right.
Because
There's
yeah.
always a curve, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm just at the beginning of it, so it is what it is.
Yes. So when you think back on your journey, from kind of start to where you are now, what
Mhm.
have been some of your biggest challenges you faced in building your personal brand?
Ooh, so I feel like there's a consistent challenge with being a social media personality in general, because I've been doing it for so long that you have to figure out how to keep your audience engaged, but also continue to stay true to why they followed you in the first place. So it's this weird.
Like tension almost.
Yeah, it's very contentious,
Mm-hmm.
because like you want to branch out and do other things. And I was very nervous even when I first got my campaign for something that was not fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I almost turned it down, because I was like, I don't think my audience is going to respond to this. They've only known me as like the plus size fashion girl. How are they
Right.
going to relate to me promoting X, Y, and Z? And so it's hard to create content that people want to see
Mm-hmm.
when they know you, and then when they followed you for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But diversifying my content has been probably the most beneficial thing to me, because I think um people only knew me in a certain way, so now I
Right.
get to show them more aspects of my life, more aspects of my personality and who I
Mm-hmm.
am. So it's kind of opened up more doors for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's a consistent challenge to figuring out how you want to show up on social media,
Yeah.
and how much of your personal life you want to share,
Mm-hmm.
how much effort and energy you want to put into creating new types of content and
Mm-hmm.
experimenting. And
Mm-hmm.
those
Mm.
experiments may not pay off,
Right.
and maybe losing your core. It's like you kind of have an identity crisis. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, I mean, it's a great problem to have, but it still is a struggle.
Yeah, definitely. And at the end of the day, you're at a position now where it is business. It's about, like you said, engagement, and which evolves into dollars, and like
Yeah,
all of these things, which evolves into
unfortunately.
livelihood. Like all of these things kind of which that's why I have so much respect for those in your industry, because there's
Yeah.
like the consistency. And I mean, I've been on trips with you, and it's like you and Steve be getting it. Like y'all don't play.
We
Y'all
get
are
down
like
to the
the tag
content.
team. Like y'all are a team. You can tell, and like you can tell that like you've been doing it long enough to kind of
Yeah.
know. But like you said, when you kind of venture into those new territories, like will it work? Will it not? But I think that's a
Yeah.
little bit of the fun of it too.
Yeah, it is. It is. Only when it doesn't pay off.
Right.
That is not fun anymore.
Right. So you talked about your challenge. What has been one of your biggest wins? Like when you were like, "Oh, I'm proud of myself."
Oh, there's been a lot of moments where I'm
Mhm.
proud of myself, and I feel like I need to have those moments more often, and I don't feel like they necessarily need to be the big ones. Like,
Right.
of course, I was ridiculously proud of myself when we launched in Nordstrom's and I saw Kim by
Hmm.
Kristine on Nordstrom's website. Like that was a moment for me. Of course I was overjoyed when I was able to go on CBS Mornings, and which is crazy how many people saw that episode.
Yeah.
So those are the huge moments and milestones, but I'm also like very proud of myself for continuing to evolve and to stay with this space, because there have been lulls. There have been times where I just felt like I'm not connecting, like my content isn't being seen. I'm not getting the engagement that I used to. Is this like my downturn, you know?
You know, time to go back to marketing, right?
You never know.
Right.
You never know. So I think that I'm just proud of myself for keeping at it and just realizing that even beyond what my goals are, aspirations, my income, everything, the core of me really just wants to connect with women that look like me. And I think that that's what's kept me through, like, and despite the ups and downs and the frustrations and, you know, crying when a post doesn't do well, which sounds so pathetic to say, but I've had many moments that way. So I'm like, even past that, I think that being able to like connect with real women who have the same struggles as I do, is really what has kept me here. So I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah. And the longevity, like you said, I mean, there have been bloggers, influencers who have come and gone. You're like, oh, what happened to that person?
Yeah, it will eat you up.
Yeah. So
this is not for the weak.
So earlier I asked you for 3 words that would describe who Kristine was when you started blogging. When you look at where you are now in your career, you are much more than a blogger. What would you say are 3 words to describe you now?
3 words.
And the words you used before were anxious, excited, and motivated.
Okay. Content. I'm content.
That's good.
Because I'm at such a good place in my life. And I'm a very aspirational person, I think, which has gotten me thus far. So I was always looking for the next thing. But I think that there's power in being just content. I feel like everybody kind of uses content as a bad thing. And that doesn't mean that I don't want more. Just like so happy and blessed where I am now that it's like, if I don't get anything else,
there's peace.
I don't have another achievement,
Yeah.
I'm good, you know? So content, grateful, and I think just still excited.
Good.
Because I mean, it's a very, there's nothing like being in this industry, and although it has its ups and downs, it has amazing upsides, and you never know what's around the corner. You know, I could get an email tomorrow that can change my life. I don't know. So just being able to be in that type of position is just such a blessing. And so I'm just excited for what God has for me.
Yeah, that is, like, I remember we were traveling. I think Essence Fest was coming. I'm like, oh, are you doing Essence Fest? You're like, I'm gonna be there. I don't know what yet, but and then next thing I know, she's like, this brand and like this trip. Like, she said
things can change.
It comes together
so often. Yeah, at that point, I think I had a plane ticket and maybe like a half a hotel room. I don't even know. I don't remember. So I was like, I'm just gonna go and just see what happens. And then I think it was like a week before I went, then this, you know, huge brand trip came and that I got to be a part of. And so yeah, it's very exciting to be in a place where you never know what can happen next. So
yeah, that's great. So when you think about the next 3 to 5 years, how do you see yourself evolving, both as a personal brand and as a businesswoman?
Yeah, so As a business, Ken is going to be my focus moving forward, because I really want to reestablish the connection with our customers. And I just have big ideas for the brand that I'm really excited about.
Nice.
And that are really making me feel like in a really good space moving forward with it. So I'm excited about that. Video has opened me up to so many more things that I didn't even think about. You know, I never really saw myself as an on-camera personality. I never really spoke to camera at all until I felt like I had to. And it's scary because you never know how people are going to perceive you.
Right. Is that what I
And then
sound
hearing
like?
the
Is
sound
that
of your
right?
own voice. I hate the sound of my voice. I'm like, why do I really sound that way? So I really want to continue to tap into that. And I think that a lot of my content being based off of how women can utilize very practical tips to dressing better and feeling better about themselves. I really want to explore that. And with so many different content avenues with
Right.
streaming services, and it's not just traditional TV anymore. There's a huge landscape of content when it comes to video. Like, I would love to tap into some sort of network to have some styling show, what not to
Yeah.
do. Like, my jam growing up, they
Yes.
literally taught me how to dress. So I'm like, can we revamp that?
I feel like it was them, and then it was Emmy.
Yes,
her show.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. They literally taught me how to dress. So I would love to do some sort of styling show or segment where, I kind of like interrupt women's everyday lives and
I love that for
help
you.
them find their inner diva,
Yes.
So
how to put it on.
Exactly. So but using a very like body positive standpoint, because I feel like a lot of makeover shows, What Not to Wear wasn't like this at all, which is why I gravitated to them so much. But a lot of like traditional makeover shows are like, you need to change completely,
Right.
Your whole appearance.
Who is that woman?
And I don't feel like it needs to be like that. Like, I just want to meet women where they are and just help them navigate to a better space and whatever that means for them. So I would love to do that. So yeah, that's kind of just what floats in my mind sometimes. Yeah.
Put it out there.
Yep.
So as we come to a close, please tell our listeners how they can support you personally, how they can support your brand in the future, how they can follow you, all of that good stuff.
Okay. So you can follow me on Instagram at Miss Kristine, MSKRISTINE, although everybody is campaigning for me to change my name to Mrs. Kristine now. That's
a big move. That's a big move.
I said, I'm ready for that.
Right.
And then on TikTok, it's at Trendy Curvy. Those are the two main places that I'm at. So would love for you to support. And although we don't have product or content right now, you can definitely follow at Kin by Kristine on Instagram, because you will be able to see the transformation and you will be able to see you're there.
Before. I love it. And what I want to do really quickly, because like Kristine said, she just got married. And you shared on your Instagram, I think your TikTok also, your wedding dress story. Which I would suggest everybody go watch, because I think it's like a perfect example of like what we plus women deal with. This was on a big stage because it's like your wedding, but like this happens with jeans. This happens with like the most minute things. So I'm gonna leave it there. Go to Miss Kristine, Trendy Curvy. Go watch the story, because I think it just goes to show why representation is important, why understanding women is important, and why understanding the woman's body is important. So
absolutely. And I just think about, if I was not an influencer,
right,
I would be first of all, I think about how this happened to me even as an influencer. And then I think about if I wasn't one, I would have had no dress. I
Right.
don't know what I would have
I
done.
mean, it would have had to been
Yeah.
off the rack. Like,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
option.
Really though.
Um,
So it just shows that we still have a long way to go.
for sure. For sure.
Especially in bridal. Bridal's
Yes.
awful.
um, So with that, I just want to say thank you, Miss Kristine, for being a guest on the Xtended Convos podcast. I am in awe of what you have built. I love watching you work. Your dedication, your motivation, your excitement still after all of these years for what you're doing and what's to come is definitely an inspiration for myself and for curvy and plus women out in the country and even in Turks and Caicos, because listen, they know her everywhere. They know Miss Kristine. Okay.
They don't know me. I don't know nobody.
But I can't wait to see what is to come in the next couple months and the next year, and we will keep everyone up to date.
Yes, we will. Excited for your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Awesome. Well, everybody, thanks again for listening. And stay tuned for the next episode.